Hey, welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Now, anybody who gets into sales watches sales movies. We watch Boiler Room, Glengarry Glen Ross, The Wolf of Wall Street, and we're going to kind of talk about that today because those movies are very entertaining. I enjoy them. I like watching them. But they do not portray sales in an effective way. Certainly not the type of sales that we talk about on this podcast. Business-to-business sales, high dollar amount, many people involved, many steps, as opposed to business-to-consumer sales, selling stocks or magazine subscriptions or cable TV, door-to-door. What we're selling is to businesses. And if you take that approach, that Wolf of Wall Street approach, which is not really selling, it's stealing, because they are saying whatever it takes to get the order. Now, that's stealing. So if you can not tell the truth, if you can pressure, if you can misrepresent, essentially lie and fraud, then that is not selling. That's stealing. And if you really want to understand what was behind that movie, there's an Australian 60 Minutes documentary on him, and he's trying to make a comeback now without paying back the people he stole from. Now, these were not millionaires. These were normal people who had retirements, and he stole it. And, we can kind of glorify it and, it's great. But that is what's wrong with sales today, is that we're not thinking about the other person. We're sometimes only thinking about ourselves. And so we're going to talk about today is that wolf prototype versus the top dog prototype. Now, the top dog prototype, what I call the maverick, call it whatever you want, the eagle, there's lots of names for it, the A-plus player. The name doesn't matter. The prototype matters, the characteristics matter, and the approach matters, because one works very short term once with one company. It doesn't work again because people, the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, comes to mind. And believe me, I've seen it before. People go in and they pull a trick to get an order in. They do a side letter. They pre-book a deal. It is career destroying. You may think you're doing something right for both the customer and the company, but most likely you're doing it right for you at that moment. And when it happens, that reputation sticks with you your entire career. And no matter what you try and do to repair it. So I really try and emphasize, don't even go that way. Now, today, there's all kinds of people on YouTube, karate chop people and, real estate people who seem to not have enough time to do the real estate, but trying to sell you cold calling, of which they've never done. Used car salesmen, recovering drug addicts, trying to sell you cold calling that they've never cold called. This may work in certain markets. And certainly with, young people in their 20s, they don't know any better because they see the social proof. They see the mansions and the private jets. And this is all social proof. This is a psychological trigger that they're trying to apply to you to have you believe that they know what they're doing. Now, is their stuff any good? I don't know. I've never used it. I've never seen it. I have no interest in it. When I first got into sales, there was all kinds of books, but most of them were on the simple B2C sale. The most complex stuff that I found was really on real estate. There started to be some emergence of B2B books, but they were so high level, so abstract, that it was hard to relate to. So it was kind of like everyone was kind of hunting and pecking because this was kind of a new space. Certainly people sold to businesses before, but it was much more like the drop-by. It was based completely off of relationships and service, and those things worked. But today, we're not doing the drop-by. It's almost near impossible to get a lot of people to get on a plane to go visit a customer. So what do we have to do? We have to do this via the phone, the internet, email, Zoom, whatever we do, Skype. But the same principles apply because the technology has evolved 1,000 times faster than our evolutionary brains have evolved. So today we're going to be talking about that wolf prototype versus the top dog prototype, what I call the maverick, and why one succeeds versus the other. Now, we're going to be talking about things like trust and stuff. And to a lot of salespeople, they say, well, that's either obvious, I know that, but are you doing it? Do you understand what it means? Are you building it, or are you assuming it? Just because you trust you doesn't mean strangers trust you. And there's a sequence that we have to go through. And this is kind of this myopic view of sales where we think that someone else is going to do what's in our own best interest. And this is a little bit of a hurdle certainly for people new in sales to jump over, because you're a good person. Why don't other people see that? And we assume that they should see it because we are a good person, but they don't know us. So how do they know that? If you don't know somebody, the assumption is that you're not a good person, because good people don't do cold approaches. Only known, liked, and trust people approach us. So we're going to get into this with Yuri. He approached me about a year ago. He sent me his book, and it's been sitting on my desk. I pick it up, I put it down, and I go, these are some of the great fundamentals. Now, the problem with fundamentals is that people think they know them. Now, knowing and doing and internalizing and practicing are very different things. And the knowing is the easiest part, but yet we give it the most credit. The doing and the implementing and the practicing are the hardest parts, and very few people do it. So we're going to get into this. I think you're really going to like this episode. I really enjoyed talking to Yuri. And if you listen to this over and over again, get his book, write these things down and ask yourself, how am I practicing this? How am I implementing this in my sale? And these are the things that get you to the next level. Because too often we get the radio silence, we get the vendor versus client relationship as opposed to I shouldn't use partners in crime, because the word crime implies that there's something not legit going on. What I mean by that is that there's just this rapport, there's this partnership. Trusted advisor is too overused and too poorly defined, because you don't have trust and your advice isn't really cared about. So getting to that is critical. And when you get it. When somebody's open and they're pulling you in, they're treating you like you're part of their company. That's when you know. And to get to that, we have to earn it. It is not assumed. Let's get into this, but before we do, I want to make sure you're checking out Co-Video. Video email is the killer app this year. It's the way to break through the noise. It's that way to build that trust, because they see you. They know you're not a spam bot. They know that you took some time to look them up, to care about them, to show your interest in them, because you put effort into it. And they see you. It's so many more dimensions. It's a visual, auditory, and that builds up that trust. So make sure you're checking that out, as well as Pipedrive. Hey, one of the listeners said, hey, Brian, you're not talking about how Pipedrive populates the company information enough. I thought I was, but I'll put out a video on it. What it does is, once it has the company URL in the CRM, in Pipedrive, it can populate their address, their phone number, all the other people around them. And all of a sudden, you don't have to enter that. It's magical. So you can get 1 month free with Brutal Truth, all one word, coupon. Let's get into the interview. I'll sum it up at the end. I think you're really going to like this. Hey, Yuri, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. First of all, it's great to be on your show, Brian. I have a lot of respect for what you do and amazing content. Now, my name is Yuri Vander Sluis, but you can just call me Yuri Vander. It might be easier. I've been in sales now for it seems forever, almost 25 years, and the last 12 years of my life, I've been training and coaching and helping sales organizations to improve their performance.
And how'd you get interested in the training side?
The last job I had, I was selling large outsourcing contracts for British Telecom in Europe and the rest of the world. And I had a lot of colleagues that were struggling, either pitching to C-level, or they were facing tough negotiations. And I love to do role playing. I said, guys, let's just simulate it. And I enjoyed it so much that I was spending almost half of my time to help my colleagues actually to be successful. And at one point, I just made the switch. I thought it would be easier for me to sign a contract as opposed to helping others to be successful. I find it more challenging and more rewarding. So since the start of 2006, I decided to dedicate and devote all of my time to help others to succeed and realize their dreams.
Excellent. And you wrote a book, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called Trust Me, I'm a Salesman. And people laugh and they think, yeah, how is that even possible? And it's exactly the reason why I wrote the book, because I think good salespeople you can trust, and your typical prototype sales person you cannot trust. So that's exactly the essence. I always say I am a salesperson, and therefore you can trust me, because that is the foundation of what my sales is all about.
And when you use that word, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so trust means, so if I say trust me, then you can read that word in a lot of ways. So I like your question. I think for me, it means that trust me that I have your interest at heart.
Yes.
So whatever I say, whatever I do, I want you to become better using my product or service. So trust me that I'm aligned with your interest. Trust me that what I say, I truly believe in. And trust me, I wouldn't offer this, I wouldn't say this if I am not convinced that down the line it will be better for you. And not just because you're just a number, but because I did my proper analysis, because I did my qualification, because I listened to you, because I empathize with your situation and your business. And therefore, you can trust me. Otherwise, I would have not offered you this, or wouldn't want to make the transaction myself.
Now, do you feel that most reps kind of assume trust instead of earn it?
Exactly, and they believe that the first impression of trust is all that it requires. Yeah. But I think you have the initial trust, saying, okay, I like this, and a prospect or a customer is interested to hear more. Even if they allow you, if you have an in, and you have this online demo, or you have this sales meeting. The prospect or customer is constantly testing you and constantly trying to find out, are you for real? Are you genuine? Can I believe what you're saying? So the moment the sales rep is contradicting himself or blowing things out of proportion, that trust is out the window. So if you portray yourself as a person that has a high level of integrity and competence and knows what the prospect or customer needs, you need to sell one thing in your process, and that is consistency. Yeah. Because if you do that, then the prospect will open up, will invite you to talk to his peers, to his boss, to anybody, because that is true trust. And so a lot of sales reps just see it as one-dimensional. I have it or I don't. But it's like an onion. There are a lot of layers of trust.
And I think a lot of people think they have it until they lose it, as opposed to they don't have it and have to earn it.
Yep, exactly.
Now, why is it so important in sales?
Well, everybody's talking about scalability and repeatability and predictability. We want to generate as much income for ourselves as possible as salespeople, but the sales teams and sales leaders and sales directors, they want to build a team and a process that is scalable, that is repeatable. Now, as we know in the business to business world, one of the biggest competition is actually no decision. So it's not always that you have to be better than your competitor, because a lot of these prospects and these companies may not buy at all. So that means we need to do our homework properly. And one of the biggest problems today is that sales cycles, they tend to take too long. We spend too much time to these opportunities that actually will never convert. So if you have trust, it means that they allow you to take a look in their own kitchen. So then you can identify all the roadblocks and all the risks of getting a transaction to be successful at all. So that's why you need trust, because if you have that level of trust, you can secure the deal from lots of different angles. And without trust, you're gambling with your time, with your prices, and you have no clue whether it's going to convert or not. And the moment if you do have trust, you're also able to identify your ideal customer profile. So you can replicate that, and then you also know very early on, you can distinguish, okay, these are the customers that I believe in, and these are customers that there is no trust and this won't convert. So you know where to spend your time on. That's why it's crucial.
And I like that you brought up that kind of either no decision or deal slippage. And I think that the trust is both ways, because if they don't trust you, they're not going to tell you the truth. They're going to tell you what's going to serve them best.
Yeah, fantastic you mentioned that, because one of the biggest reasons salespeople say they lose deals is because of price. Obviously, it's never price, or rarely price. However, they're never going to say, "Yeah, I didn't like your face," or they won't say, "I don't like the fact that you come across as a sleazy salesperson," or "Yeah, you mentioned this, but then I checked online and I saw different prices, so I think you're lying, you're manipulating everything." So they won't tell the honest truth because they don't feel like they need to confront you personally. So what's the safest, easiest thing to say is, "Yeah, you're too expensive. I cannot afford it. I don't have the money." So that means that in 20 seconds, the salesperson is gone and you don't have to justify yourself. So 90% they say for all the deals that you've lost, yeah, it's because of price. But that's obviously rarely the real reason. Now, if it is price, then it's the salesperson not being able to uncover value. And if you cannot demonstrate or uncover value, it's because you don't have that sensitive information that you need on the customer side. And that's also based on trust.
And I think that's kind of an acid test of, are you being trusted, in that they reciprocate with information that is not necessarily solely in their best interest, that they're honest, open, and engaged with you. They call you back. When there is an obstacle, whatever it is, timing, price, size, whatever, they share that with you to help work with you to resolve it, as opposed to just shutting you out or giving you a red herring. I'm busy Saturday night,
Exactly, and if that happens, it's good in a sense that you're not in his inner circle. So you want to capture that information that that he is not sharing with all your competitors, or that he's never shared at all. So that type of information that will make you successful. That is the level of trust that your prospect will indeed say, "Yeah, I'm afraid to communicate this to my boss because I'm not sure if he will be convinced." And you can say, "Okay, what do you feel that you're missing?" And then you feel you can empathize and you can empower your customer. You hear his doubts. You know the risks way beforehand. And it's not always easy to get this level of trust, because at the same time you want to move fast, but to move fast sometimes is the worst thing you can do. You can run really fast to no decision and lose the opportunity. So there's no point in running if it doesn't bring you the deal. You have to be effective.
Yeah.
You have to know what does it take for this to be successful. It's like fruit. Sometimes fruit is so ripe you got to pluck it straight away. But when it's not ripe yet, there's no point in trying to force something which is not ready.
It doesn't taste very good. Now, trust is also very different than being liked.
Yeah. I like this. I can be funny. I can tell you 3 or 4 jokes. This guy is great. But you wouldn't necessarily invite me to take care if you have 2 little kids to be your babysitter.
Well, that's it.
Right?
That's a test in your personal life. I always had who would you give a spare set of your house keys to? Nice.
Yeah. It's a similar thing. But being liked is part of it. It's part of it. It starts with liking. And then trust is a second or the third step. You can also turn it around in a sense that if you don't like a person, it's hard to trust that person because probably there's something there that you really don't like. So liking is the first step to trust, but it's just the beginning. There's still a long way to go.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's showing them that their interest is above yours, that you will not sacrifice your integrity to jeopardize that level of trust. That to get the commission, to get the order, to cut the time, that what you'll say is the truth, and you will protect them.
Yeah, and I think that it's almost. It's such common sense and almost too easy. However, I see it rarely applied really well. If I look at my clients and all the salespeople that I work with, it's not easy to demonstrate it.
It's not.
But if you look at the essence, at the principle, and this is, Brian, what I really like. If you talk to a customer or to a prospect, they have certain wants and needs. How great is it if you as a salesperson, the only thing you have to do is align yourself with that trust or with that need and the desire first. And then secondly, you test if you can deliver what they're looking for, if you can deliver the results that they are after. But first you align with their desires and needs and their interests. Because if you can serve their interest, you're in the money anyways. Right. So you should start with them first. And I've seen some of your videos and listened to some of your podcasts, and I completely agree. Usually, an elevator pitch or a pitch or a sales presentation is all about me, my product and my value, and this is what I can do for you. But then it's all about me, and then this is where resistance and where the gap is started, and you can never bridge it. The moment you've been pitching your product and sharing prices and demonstrating what you think the value is of your product without knowing the other person, that is the very same moment that you've lost all leverage. Because it's not a proposal. It's not a solution. It's only a solution if you know the problem of your customer beforehand. Right. So that's where it starts.
And I think because when you're cold pitching, when somebody doesn't really know you, like you, or trust you, what's the likelihood that they're going to believe what you're saying, no matter how compelling or how much social proof there is? And I've heard a sales expert say, forget about being liked. Just solve the problem for them. It'd be so amazing that they have to have it. And it's like, well, they have to believe what you're saying because anyone can say anything. There's no there's no law against lying, unfortunately, other than fraud. But I think everyone is skeptical when the phone rings. If there's the no. Okay, do I recognize the number? Do I like them enough to talk to them? If I do talk to them, is the trust there to believe what they're saying, that they can do this, that, or the other thing? until that exists, trust is kind of the bandwidth of business. It's the speed of business. And it's not the slow way, it's the fast way.
Even though it feels slow because it doesn't come together with fireworks, but it accelerates. So you take a few small steps, and suddenly it's like a snowball. Then everything goes fast.
Yeah.
As opposed to just put your product out there and prices and give a demo, and then it becomes slow, because then you start calling the person who won't call you back, and then so you have to turn it around. But so I think you need both. It may start with liking, but it doesn't stop there. Right. You have to continue, and obviously you need to solve problems. So I agree with that sentence. However, as you say, if you and me talk together, and you have a product or a proposition for me, or the other way around, what you hope as a salesperson is that the other person is truly listening without a filter. Oh, you're selling to me. There's no filter. So your level of integrity and your interest is so aligned with the other that every word you say will be taken 100% as truth, or as there's no filter or interpretation, zero. This is what you try to achieve, because then the salesperson can validate. Because I think that in the end marks a true sales professional. Who's doing the validation? Because if you as a salesperson, if you only are interested that the other person is buying, but you don't really care if they actually get value out of it, it means that the validation is only at the prospect or customer side. You say, hey, I'm just selling the product here. You buy it or not? Do you want it or not? However, if the salesperson is also part of this validation process and is critical, and they want to know your business processes and want to know the TCO and the ROI, and they want to make sure that the customer actually benefits from that solution. If you're part of that validation process, then you're not only going to be liked and trusted, but then only then you can truly check if you can solve somebody else's problem.
Yeah. Now, you took a very unique approach to presenting your material and your ideas in the book. Why did you pick that approach?
Yeah, so I picked the approach. Actually, it was very funny in the sense that the fantastic, phenomenal movie came out, The Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah. And, everybody likes it because it's sexy, it's funny, and it's great to look at. However, nobody ever pictures the desire to be one of his customers, that you're one of those schmucks that bought these penny stocks. Right. So the moment you're on the other side, we don't think about that side of the coin. So it's a great movie, but it doesn't say anything about level of professionalism or great salesmanship. This is how to be a great con man.
Yeah.
And a great con man. It's very easy. I can promise anything to anybody if I don't have to sell a second time. If you only sell once and you're out of here, you can say, yeah, the moment you buy this product, it will turn into gold tomorrow. You'll see. Just give me $100 and I'm gone. So if you need to sell to that same person a week later, if you are in this business for the long term, you cannot promise something that is entirely fraudulent or wrong. So I oppose that. It's the opposite of great salesmanship. So, and then some people, they refer to me, yeah, that's a great movie. Yeah, isn't that great? Doesn't that truly talk about how sales should be? And it really felt bad in my stomach. So I thought, okay, after training so many years, if there's one message, if I would quit tomorrow, and if there's one message I would like to share with the world, what would that message be? And I can write about negotiation and deal acceleration or cold calling, LinkedIn. We can write about anything, being a sales expert and dealing with all these sales professionals. But what is the one message that I thought I wanted to share with the world? It would be, don't be the wolf like the Wolf of Wall Street, but try to be the top dog. Try to be a dog that is loyal to the customer and thrives to provide value to the world using your product and service and still be really successful. So that's why I wrote this book, and I made a contrast between the wolf and the dog throughout the entire sales process.
Yeah, because I find it interesting that, certainly young guys in their 20s, and I remember being one, it was a while ago, that you want, because in sales we feel somewhat powerless at times, right? Because we're the ones asking, we're the ones trying to earn time, earn attention. And when we see, a movie like that where someone just demands it, tricks, says what people want to hear, and it's not selling, it's stealing. Let's face it. It's, you're exchanging money for something that isn't worth anything. That's stealing. And I see it today on YouTube, and people who, lease a private jet or rent a private jet, put their label on it and say, look how successful I am. And like, all you have to do is Google their name and you see the lawsuits and the fraudulent behavior. But people don't believe that. They want that instant macho thing. And they think that's the way, the easiest, fastest way to the top. And maybe it is in certain industries, but I've never seen it work in B2B long term, more than a year. And I don't even wish it would, because your reputation, your network, if you look at all the B2B sales, it's like you get a client, they know other people, you want them to buy more, you want them to say nice things about you. Guess what? You have to work for them. You have to help them. It's not a transaction. It's a transformation. It's a relationship.
Yep, exactly. And so, Brian, I also see these people that portray success, and success sells. Unfortunately, it's true that it sells. But there's one big caveat that these young people should realize, that you're buying an illusion, right? So if I say I'm really successful, look, and I have this private jet and this mansion, so it means I must know what I'm doing, and I'm going to teach you the skills. It almost sounds like that there is a shortcut to success if you only apply the golden 1, 2, 3 rule, and it will take you 1 minute and $500, and then suddenly you will be successful. This promise of a shortcut to success translates into salespeople selling success to their customers.
That's all it is.
So right now they're going to call to their customers saying, yeah, you can also be successful just with these Facebook ads, and then it will bring you so many customers. I promise you, it's going to be great. And then they will promise their customers. So everybody's promising, but in the end, if you put everything on a scale, on the left side, all these promises, and on the other side, the value, then in the end, what is the intrinsic value that came out of it? Month after month, or quarter after quarter, year after year. So in the end, it's not only success that sells, the perception of success, but actual success. And what is actual success? It is not what somebody accumulated for himself by making false promises, but success is how you have helped others succeed and their businesses long term. That will prove me that you're truly successful, not if you were able to sell something that eventually never really amounted to anything. Because that is crap. It's just an illusion. And for me, I'm a serious buyer. I don't buy illusion. And suddenly you think, okay, this is the magic powder. No, I want to buy or work with people that know what they're doing. And business to business, as you say, right now there's a big phenomenon. We should never, ever forget it. CB came out with the latest research, and I think it's even more than the number I'm going to share with you. 6.1 people on average is a decision-making unit right now, which means that more than 6 people are going to evaluate whether your product or service is worthwhile buying. Now, the more you blow up and come with all these empty promises, the more it loses its authentic, actual, real prediction of strength, actual strength.
Yeah.
And so 6.1. So that means that if you promise too much, then these 6 people, this buying committee, if you're not part of it, it won't be a deal.
And I think that brings up the key distinction between B2B sales and B2C sales. And we still have that B2C mentality that there's that one decision maker at this company because it's the person we're talking to, or the person shows interest, who has the problem, likes us. And, people say, oh, well, there's more people involved. I agree there's more people involved, but we have to be aware that there's more than one person always involved when you're selling to a company, even if you're selling to the CEO and the owner, because nobody anymore just buys a product and crams it down people's throat because they've tried that once. It only works once, because you buy the product and no one uses it.
Yeah, and then if you think about where's the world developing into, I mean, it's just another thought while we're discussing this. It's very interesting. A modern CEO, a person of this age of today, I'm not talking about a traditional CEO. A CEO wouldn't tell his entire organization, we're going to work with this solution because I say it's going to be. The majority of companies want to be internally democratic, and they want to involve and empower their managers, and the managers want to empower the layers below them to make sure that everybody is in favor of the company and of the solution. So everybody has to be on board. This notion that the CEO will say, yeah, this is going to be because I say so, the majority, if it's not carried by the organization, it won't be successful. So it is wrong to think that the higher you go, the better, because the decisions, it's sometimes unclear who has the final decision, because it's a dynamic of maybe 8 or 9 people in their room or in a conference call. So they carry this decision together. So you as a top dog should be in the middle of that room to listen to all these interests, because they trust that the way how you sell serves their interest. Only then you'll be invited to sit at that table. If you're a salesperson just presenting products and prices, you won't be invited. So you cannot be part of that discussion.
Excellent. Hey, I really enjoyed the book. I think the points are great. The contrast is fantastic because you get to compare kind of like the preconception or the common belief versus what the reality is and the distinctions between them. Well, where can people get the book and connect up with you?
As I said, Yuri van der Sluis, Sluis, that's my name, from Holland, Amsterdam. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. And trust me, I'm a salesman. You can buy it on Amazon, and it will be shipped. And in a few days, you'll have it. And if you have any questions, or any of your wonderful listeners have any questions, they can approach me directly so we can continue discussing.
Hey, Yuri's a great guy. Now, I'd recommend getting the book. The book is really a short read, a fun read, a simple, easy, referenceable read, as opposed to a novel or your typical sales book that has a little bit too much detail. So it gives you like certain points for each phase of the sales cycle. So trust me, I'm a salesman. It's kind of a great title. I know Ryan Holiday has a book, Trust Me, I'm Lying. But trust in sales is critical, because trust breaks through the BS. Trust is the bandwidth of communication, because without trust, there's parsing on both sides. Like, what is the meaning of the words they say? Now, do you trust your client? When they say, oh, yeah, send me a quote, does that mean, oh, yeah, send me a quote? Or does that mean I got to go, send me a quote so you feel better, I can get off the phone and move on with my life? So listening to the meaning of things is critical. Now, everyone will feel that this stuff is obvious. And, I think we've all heard it before. But it's really getting us ready to believe it, to integrate it into our approach, to practice it, to study it, and bring it to our consciousness every day when we interact with our clients. Because naturally, we're under pressure. So what's the first thing to go? Everyone else is concerned but our own to get the urgency done, as opposed to doing our job well, building up the snowball, the flywheel, the momentum of our pipeline and our career. And that's hard to do. I get it, because today, we're stuck entering data in a CRM so our dashboard looks good for our manager. But that doesn't sell anything, that other than your manager's confidence in you. So check it out. I think I'm going to be talking a lot about this. I'm putting this stuff into the Year of Excellence, which is a course I'm developing. It's included with Closing the Complex Sale. You can check out all the courses at b2brevenue.com. The link is in the show notes. Just tap the artwork or page up, depending on which phone you have. You'll see the link. In there is a sample email that you can send to your manager to see if they'll get you to pay. But I would just do it on your own. Now, this is a great example because I put a post out on LinkedIn about what causes no decision. And 8 out of 10 was not enough value. I disagree with that. I think there's so much value in certain things, but there's no initiative. There's no motivation. There's not enough pain. There's a lot of ROI with a lot of things, like meditation. I don't think anyone would argue that the ROI on 5 minutes of meditation is worth hours in return. Why? Because we're able to control our emotions, our breath, our focus. But why don't we do it? We're busy, whatever. There's a million excuses. Or exercise. We all know that. Eating good. We all know that. But do we do it? Some of us do, some of us don't. And there's always these little things. So it's not that we don't know the return. It's that we don't have that initiative. We don't have that push. And that's kind of our job as salespeople. And I think that's what's going on with the courses is we all know that you get 100 to 1,000 times return on your investment, but it requires a little bit of money and a little bit of work. And we're busy and we're cheap and we've got lots of things to spend our money on, whatever. But I don't think it's value. I think it's getting ourselves ready to do it. And as salespeople, we got to get our clients ready to do it. Now, right now, we're now at the last week of February. I'm recording this, not sure when you're listening to it. So we're moving into the very end of Q1. So the year is almost a quarter over. So I'm basically if you're not in procurement right now, the deal's going to be tight, depending on the size of the company you're selling to. And now you get 3 quarters left. The summer quarter, depending on your industry, you lose 2 months there. The year is slowly slipping away. And looking at your comp plan, look at your pipeline, I think that now is the time to really reflect, because I get it. January is burnt with, quotas and kickoff and territory changes and quarterly reviews. I love how they do that. Let's tie you up in a kickoff meeting, and then the next week they do a territory review. And you're like, I just got the territory, and you took me away for a week. Now everyone's sick. I know. I lived that run around for too many years. That's why I work for myself. But this is the time to take stock of where you are and where you want to go this year. How much money did you make last year? How much money do you want to make this year? And how much time do you want to waste on deals that aren't going to close? And how do you get those deals that can close to close so that you get paid for it instead of the person who gets your territory next year? That's what the courses are all about. There's two major ones. One, start the conversation, get the meeting. And what's beautiful about this course is more than half of the people want to renew, meaning that they had a year to learn it, apply it, and they want to get it again. Hey, can you give me a break on doing it again? And the knowledge and the content of the course is neither complex nor hard to do, but to do it well, to perform, to apply it, to scale it, to outsource it takes time, practice, and there's so many little nuances of it to really get it good that people want to renew. And similar with closing the complex sale. You get a year access to it. And people want the office hours. They want the one-on-ones. Now, how else can you get deal coaching with somebody who has 30 years of sales? One-on-one. Nobody else is listening. I do record it. I put it in the course so everybody can get the benefit of it. But you can get your deal. You abstract out what I don't care what you're selling. I don't care who you're selling it to. And your name is irrelevant. Where it is, what you're up against, and everybody gets into the gory details of the technology or whatever. And that stuff, it's relevant, but the strategy is so much more important because there's certain patterns that emerge in the complex sale that are so easy to prevent and hard to repair. Make sure you're checking out the old episodes because I keep them up there for a reason, because they're gold. I work so hard on them. I've got two other podcasts that you may be interested in. Sales Questions. It's a daily podcast, less than 8 minutes, certainly less than 10 minutes long. I take users' questions, listeners' questions, LinkedIn questions, and I answer them real quick, no fluff, no intro. So you can just, boom, get your question answered. There's hundreds of them out there. You can flip to the question right before you need it. Just subscribe to it so it gets into your feed. Also, B2B Revenue Leadership. That's a leadership-focused podcast for managers and leaders, kind of the C-suite. But you get to understand what they're up against and what they're facing. Because, let's face it, it's a crowded world out there. The economy is still great. We thought we were going into a recession. I think there was a false alarm on that. I think people just, wait a second, stock market's been going straight up. We got to change that. It's going to be a great year. Let me know how I can help. And I really appreciate those people on LinkedIn who just put that little thumbs up when they see a video or some piece of my content fly by in their feed. I really try and add value in less than a minute on there. There's no pitching. It's all value. I try and bring you something that people are not thinking about or have you think about it differently. So if you just don't read the title of the video, actually listen to it before you jump to a conclusion. Because one of the critical elements of being a great salesperson is the ability to listen. And to listen to understand, not to listen to come to a conclusion. Very big distinction there. Wait a second, I'm going to do a video on that. Let me get my list out. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.